All right, everyone, welcome back to Hot Route Takes. This is the NFL Week 16 recap show. Apologies for the late notice and getting this to you guys. I know it's Wednesday and it's been a few days since all of that action has happened. But with Christmas over the weekend and I was a little under the weather, some scheduling conflicts. We're just going to do a very short recap of the key games from Week 16 because there were some key ones. And then we're going to get into our game picks for Week 17. And that's going to be what this episode is focused around today. But before we do any of that, my buddy Christian here wants to get a few things off his chest and take the stand. So I'm going to let Christian go ahead and spill what he's got.
Last week, I just want to start with apologizing, saying that the 49ers are going to blow out the Baltimore Ravens. I did pick the Baltimore Ravens and the 49ers to go to the Super Bowl. We may say, one of those teams may possibly change with these next couple of weeks, but one team I think is locked and loaded, and that's, I want to apologize to Lamar Jackson foremost and how great he's been playing now, and MVP front runner in my book. And then, we'll switch it up, also talk about the Miami Dolphins and how Tony Pollard has done what he done all year and not get into the end zone. And I just still cannot apologize to Tua, but their defense, I want to apologize for being the top unit. But, this week is a big week for Tua. But I think Baltimore Ravens, I apologize, Chase, to your Baltimore Ravens.
That's very big of you, Christian. And we get together every week now. It's been 16 weeks. And if you'd have told me we're at the position we are here, Week 17, with my Ravens, Brian's Dolphins, I would have called you a liar. We couldn't have scripted it like this. And to get your respect of how they've played this year, I've seen my Ravens have come that far and earned that. You're still a little skeptical of the Dolphins. Maybe this week, if they can pull off a big win, because this is going to be a very good game, Week 17. It's going to be for the 1 seed in the AFC. Maybe that's what it takes for them to get your respect. But right now, the whole world is buzzing about my Ravens because of what they did on Christmas night against the 49ers. So that's really one of the 6 key games we have picked out from Week 16 we want to break down for the listeners today. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time because I think the nation was watching that game between Baltimore and San Francisco Monday night. And I believe it's the most viewed game, Monday night football game, and besides Chiefs-Eagles in its history. The world was watching and they saw Lamar Jackson put that offense on his back and just play MVP level football. And then they saw the defense create havoc all night against coming into the night, the best offense in the NFL based on DVOA and all the advanced metrics. They created 5 turnovers, picked off Brock Purdy 3 times in the first half, I believe, 5 total picks on the night. Kyle Hamilton has just inserted himself right in the Defensive Player of the Year race. I know it's hard for secondary players to win that award, but 2 picks on Monday night, and you partner that with his versatility, lining up everywhere and just making plays all night, man. That defense, they really came to play Monday night, and they play well when they're overlooked and seen as underdogs, and that really felt like how the whole NFL landscape was looking at that game, that San Fran would run away with it, and I just couldn't be more impressed with how my Ravens played Christmas night. It was a very fun Christmas, and I'm just hopeful that they can back it up because now the world's going to be praising you, and you've got a very good Dolphins team coming to M&T Bank Stadium playing you for the number 1 seed, that first round bye in the playoffs. It's going to be a big matchup. Can you take all that love you're getting from the media, block that out, play good football, and beat a good team? We'll get into that later, but I'll let both of you guys touch on what you saw from 2 of the better teams in football on Christmas night and how the Ravens ended up dominating that game.
At first, I thought this was going to be a track meet between the 2 teams. They started out hot, 49ers did, but George Kittle, 50-yard play. Christian McCaffrey got going a little bit. But I think really the story of the game is the Baltimore Ravens defense being opportunistic and taking the ball away, and that's something they've done all season long. And then on the offensive side of the ball, just being balanced. being able to do a little bit of both, having Lamar's action on the ground, having a little bit here and there from Gus Edwards and Hill, but really it was the Lamar Jackson show. And, Baltimore has become very accustomed to seeing that, and he's shown that he is an MVP level quarterback, and he did that in this game against arguably one of the best defenses in the NFL. They've definitely had that high level respect from across the league, but this year maybe not as good as years past, but still very good, and they did it. And so credit to Baltimore, credit to this defense, particularly like I had talked about in last pod, that linebacker duo and Kyle Hamilton just being able to be really good middle of the field defenders, and that really puts a wrench in what the Niners do, traditionally. So good team win for Baltimore.
Yeah, I'm going to keep it short to like you said, Chase. I know a lot of people watch this game, but the big thing for me is the 49ers having 10 penalties, 102 yards total. This is a team we don't see have penalties, great coach team, and then you top on the 5 interceptions thrown. I mean, you tell me that's going to happen, 10 penalties and 5 turnovers, you definitely should win this game. But also, I am disappointed in one Baltimore Raven, and me and Brian talked about this at work, and that is Kyle Hamilton. I thought he was on the all-white team, but I see that he's planted his flag somewhere else. Well, then that man, he's a dog, man. We've been respecting him on the pod, but he has went down my list a little bit with his comments after the game.
The Marlon Humphrey victory IG lives can be a bit chaotic, to say the least. And the world found out quickly that Kyle Hamilton, he's kind of already proven himself on the national stage a lot. Like, he gets highlighted in the Sunday night, Monday night games because the league is becoming aware how good he is. And that personality he showcased after the game, planting his flag as not a part of the all-white team. Sorry, Will Compton. Maybe you can trade for him with some assets, maybe a Max Crosby back over to make that trade a little more fair. But great stuff, man. Great stuff. That was a fun game to watch, obviously, for me. And 2 really good teams that if I'm hopeful we see a matchup like that again. But there's a lot of good teams in the way before we get that far. So as for some other key Week 16 games, Brian, your Dolphins had been searching for a big marquee win for much of the year now, and they took care of business at home against the Dallas Cowboys. That game stayed pretty tight throughout, and in the end, it was Jason Sanders' field goal to put them over the top and give Miami that win and keep them in the same arms linked with the Ravens for that 1 seed. So to a pretty sound night. The defense especially played well. That big turnover on Tony Pollard right at the goal line really flipped the game early on for me. Other than that, what'd you see from performances from other key guys and from Tua and company to get that win?
Well, for me, I honestly thought the offense had a little bit of an off night. Tua missed some throws that he routinely makes, and he still had a decent night altogether. I think he showed a lot of the things that made him a high draft pick and has allowed him to be as successful as he is so far. His career anticipation throws over the middle, hitting Tyreek in stride, and just kind of getting things going offensively. But like I said, he did miss a couple routine throws that he normally makes on third downs. But, I really thought the story of the day was on the defensive side of the ball and really getting after Dak Prescott. He was getting pressured a lot and ended up, still making some big-time plays. I think Dak Prescott actually played pretty dang well in this game. He did everything he could, really, for this team to win. But they didn't get a stop when they needed it most, and Miami drove down the field and scored at the end of the game. I think it was kind of a whoever had the ball last was going to win this game kind of deal. So credit to Dallas. I thought they played well. And I think really Miami left some points out there. But, lucky to come away with a win here at home. Needed it to kind of switch the narrative. And here we are.
Yeah, and to set that up, guys, I want to get to another key game we had earlier in the week, and that was Bills-Chargers, a game we didn't think was going to be particularly close. But the Bills ended up winning on a last-second field goal. Christian, you're a Chargers fan. I know Herbert was not playing that night. But your guys, especially the defense, you got to be encouraged with the performance they gave. Maybe that gets implanted in the DNA for future Chargers teams. What was working so well, and what scares you about the Bills, the fact that they kind of struggled with this one earlier in the week?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that makes me not so scared for the Bills is they go on and play New England this week. So they need a big bounce back week. They have it set up nicely for New England. For the Chargers, man, just don't do this to me. Let's just lose some games. Let's not. We don't need to do anything like this. I understand there's a new coach, but I think, my big thing is just, sacks allowed. We had 5 sacks against us, and we only got to the quarterback once. It is Josh Allen, but for how great the defense is, we know how much we pay, at least in one edge that is on the field. I understand Joey Bosa's still not there, but I want us to get after the quarterback, but I don't want to spend too much time on it. But, Buffalo, with the upcoming schedule, this will be a team I think we will watch closely. And at this point, I hate to say it because Chargers is my team, but hopefully we just keep losing and get a good draft pick.
Well said there, Christian. I think that's the big takeaway from that game. Sunday slate of action, we had a few keynotes to hit on. The first I'm going to touch is the Detroit Lions winning 32-24 on the road in Minnesota. This clinches the NFC North for Detroit. Long time coming for those guys. They battled, and it was a tight game throughout that Sunday, but ultimately coming up, the defense got 4 picks off Mullins in that game, made opportunistic plays, and Mullins was really just firing that thing deep, man. Like, he threw for over 400 yards, but Detroit made him pay when he made the mistakes, and the offense was sound enough. Jahmyr Gibbs had a disgusting cut, man. He is really elusive in the open field. I love watching him run that football. Just great stuff from Detroit. Hat tip and congrats to every Detroit fan listening. You guys definitely deserve that. It's been a long time coming. So moving along, another Sunday game that was key was the Cleveland Browns and Houston Texans. No C.J. Stroud, and they really struggled on that side of the ball, whereas Cleveland, Joe Flacco has got that offense humming right now, guys. Had Amari Cooper set the franchise record for receiving and went over 200-something yards in that game. Flacco over 300 again. Christian, you've been keeping up with the Browns nonstop. They're actually still in the 1 seed race as well if things fall their way. What'd you see from Cleveland on Sunday that impressed you?
Yeah, I'm going to go with what I said last week, man. The passing yards is very impressive, but it kind of scares me that since Joe Flacco's been there, the rushing attack is just not what it is. We've seen only 54 yards in this game, and I'm lower than what I'm seeing out of Joe Flacco, but 2 interceptions. It's been kind of a repetitive thing that's turning the ball over with Joe Flacco. And right now it's nice because you're playing, Houston without their starting quarterback. So you're getting away with some of that. So I think just moving on with Cleveland in the future, Joe Flacco's got to protect the ball better. But I understand that Mark Cooper had a field day, but I think you still need to get this running game going because that's what Cleveland's known for at this point.
I agree. 100% there, Christian. Against the better opponents, they got to clean some of those things up. But Cleveland looking very dominant these last few weeks on the offensive side. Next up, a team that's really 2 teams going opposite directions. The Jacksonville Jaguars now lost 4 in a row. They dropped to 8-7. Every AFC South team that was 8-6 lost on Sunday. So first place tie still with 2 weeks left. Each team sitting at 8-7. Whereas you flip the other side, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the winners of that game, got to 8-7 after a 30-12 victory. They have won, I believe, 4 in a row now, sitting atop the NFC South. So just a game I didn't really see coming, especially with Trevor playing the dominant fashion the Bucs played. But credit to them. Brian, do you have any quick notes from that football game?
Not a whole lot other than these 2 things, and it's Trevor Lawrence and company, man. They cannot get things going on offense. Nothing on the ground. Travis Etienne 6 carries for 12 yards. That was the big thing I wanted to see going into this game if they were going to win it, I think, was getting the ground game going. And they just have not done that. And Trevor Lawrence continues to turn the ball over at a very high clip. 2 picks and 2 lost fumbles in this game. I'm starting to have my worries there. But granted, he's not healthy. So how much can you really take out of that? I'm not sure. And then Baker Mayfield playing probably the best football of his career right now. And credit to him. He's doing it, and that's really all I got to say.
Yeah, to speak on Trevor Lawrence, most turnovers since he entered the league, he's got to find a way to clean that up because Jacksonville's a good team, but to beat the other good teams in the AFC and the NFC, you got to play cleaner football. They struggled with that Sunday, and they got their tails handed to them by Baker and company. So the last one I want to get all of our thoughts on quickly here was the midday Christmas Day game between the Las Vegas Raiders and the Kansas City Chiefs. Vegas pulling off the upset in Arrowhead on Christmas Day despite Aiden O'Connell not having one completion in the last 3 quarters of the game. Nothing from the Las Vegas passing attack. They got 2 defensive touchdowns on back-to-back plays, mind you, and they really just balled out on that side of the ball. And Patrick Mahomes and that offense for Kansas City just keeps looking like a bigger and bigger question mark each week we move along here. So they're still in first in the AFC West. They can take care of business and clinch that this week, but big red flags for that team. What did you guys see from them on Christmas Day that leave you scratching your head?
I think this game was lost by the Kansas City Chiefs offense. And I think a lot of it has to do with Patrick Mahomes. Granted, you can talk about the receivers and the lack of production and the lack of consistency over this season, but at the end of the day, the quarterback's the one pulling the trigger and throwing it to these guys. And you know, they did have some drop passes, and it wasn't perfect and definitely wasn't pretty, but, you know, a lot of it has to do with Mahomes. He's bailing on plays way early. He's trying to make something happen. This offensive line, the tackles are banged up. He's getting pressure in his face, but he isn't following through with the play. He's trying to create. And yes, he's great. You know, he's a very good quarterback, but that doesn't work all the time. It just, you got to be able to play within structure of the offense, and he's not doing it. So, Patrick Mahomes lost this game for the Kansas City Chiefs in my mind.
No, I agree. My big takeaways, though, I mean, like Chase said, I mean, in the first quarter, since then, he couldn't do anything pass-wise. And, I mean, I talked about this defense, and at halftime, you know, I would think the defense coordinator would say, hey, let's sell out for the run because we've already proven that, I mean, he can't throw against us. So I'm kind of disappointed in really KC's defense, a guy that's been talked about maybe getting a head coaching job somewhere. I mean, seeing this performance out of him makes me not look his way so much, but like you're saying, I mean, the offense had multiple opportunities to take over the game, and it's just was turnover. So, I mean, you can point at many places. I mean, Andy Reid, I seen at one point in the game, not really sure where it was, but Patrick Mahomes getting heated because the play call wasn't coming in on time, so then it had to delay a game. So I think there's a lot of miscues, and I don't think it was like what we're saying Green Bay with this a young team. I just think it's just a lot of chaos going on right now, and too many maybe pointing fingers instead of really taking ownership into the blame is what's going on in KC right now.
Yeah, it's just puzzling because we've seen the KC offense for so many years now be such a well-oiled machine. This just is not like them, so something we got to watch out for. But all that said, they get into the postseason play. No one wants to play Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. But this time, since they keep shooting themselves in the foot, it looks like he's going to have to play a road playoff game for the first time in his career. How does he handle that? A big talking point we'll get into the coming weeks on this podcast. So that's it for the recap. There's obviously 16 full games. We're not going to dive into every one of those, but we'll touch on each as we get through our Week 17 game picks. And we'll kind of quickly hit on anything we need to tell you guys as we go through there. The first one is going to be a Thursday night game. One AFC wildcard hopeful who come off a win last week is the Cleveland Browns. They'll be hosting the New York Jets. Looking to keep that offense humming behind Joe Flacco. I will say, Christian's point, Joe Flacco's got to take care of the ball a little bit better against this Jets defense because they come off a win last week where that first half performance against Washington, they were lights out. Sam Howell looked absolutely lost, and it was Jacoby Brissett that come in and really anchored a comeback. Washington even taking the lead at one point in that game, but the Jets did come out victorious thanks to a Greg Zuerlein field goal. So Cleveland offense got to take care of the ball a little bit better against this Jets defense. I think they'll do so at home. They're still fighting for that playoff spot, still fighting for the 1 seed technically. So I think Joe Flacco and company take care of business and win this football game.
Yeah, I went with the Browns as well. I think this is going to be a defensive slugfest, and I really thought about picking the Jets here because of what we had talked about earlier in Joe Flacco not taking care of the ball. But I just think the Browns defense is going to do more of the same and make the Jets quarterback turn the ball over. So I'm going to go with the Browns here. I just trust it a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with both what you're saying. Just the defenses, both I look at equally, honestly, at this point. But I look at the offenses, and I believe way more in the Cleveland offense than the Jets offense. So it was an easy Cleveland pick for me.
Yeah. all on Cleveland there. The next game is going to be the Saturday ABC game, prime time in Dallas. 10-5 Cowboys taking on the NFC North champion 11-4 Detroit Lions. Dallas coming off that loss to Miami last week. I still think we've talked on both of these teams in the NFC much of this pod throughout the year as the third and fourth best team behind Philadelphia, San Fran, and that conference for most of the year. Christian's really been on Detroit lately. Me and Brian more so on Dallas. I still think, despite Detroit's performance last week, I think that defense is too reliant on forcing turnovers or having Aiden Hutchinson get after the quarterback, so that scares me. I think Dak has been lights out at home this year, and that will continue, and the Dallas offense has a bounce-back game and wins primetime Saturday night.
Yeah, I think that this is going to be a very interesting clash between the Detroit Lions offensive line and the defensive line for the Dallas Cowboys and how well they can mitigate Micah Parsons, because Parsons is a game wrecker, man. Although that being said, I'm a little bit worried, like you touched on a little bit, Chase, with Aiden Hutchinson being the only pass rusher really that they have, and the offensive line for Dallas being pretty strong. I think that Dak will have plenty of time to survey the field, and the secondary's banged up. I'm going to go with Dallas here. I think they're just a little bit more of a complete team right now. And I think where Detroit's weaknesses are, I think Dallas can exploit them.
I actually went with Detroit, man. I just think Detroit, big week this week, finally went into the division. And I think building on that, what we're seeing out of just all their playmakers on offense. I mean, we're seeing Gibbs, Laporta, St. Brown. They have a lot more playmakers. And it just seemed like, to me at least, when Dallas struggles to really get CeeDee Lamb in the game, their offense just really gets standstill. It's not moving a lot. I mean, their number two guy is the tight end, Ferguson. So I just really think if, Detroit locks in on CeeDee Lamb and really give Dak Prescott all the time he wants, but I think just really taking CeeDee Lamb out the game, Detroit can really start taking over the game and just let it be the Gibbs show. It's really the X factor in this game to me. I think, like you're saying, with how fast they're going to get behind them, if they give the ball to a Gibbs that, like Chase said, one cut, He's taking it a good couple yards. So I went with Detroit just because too many playmakers more so on their offense side than Dallas, at least to me at this point in the season.
All right, that's going to be the only Saturday game. We get into Sunday action, jam-packed in the 1 o'clock window. The first one, by show of hands, anyone willing to upset pick here and pick the Pats on the road against the Bills? Really, Brian?
This down, Brian.
I
did it last week, man. I ain't doing it twice, man. I did it last week.
I really thought about it, though. Like, dead seriously. Because
okay, he's lying.
This is an upset game. This is a trap game, son. They almost lost to the Chargers with Easton Stick starting. Bailey Zappi's been on.
Put some respect on my guy.
Bailey Zappi might be a little better, man. But no, I went with Buffalo. I just think it's hard to pick that upset, but really, watch out for that one.
Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and move it along. It's all three of us on Buffalo. The next 1 o'clock game is the Chicago Bears hosting the 7-8 Atlanta Falcons, still fighting technically for that NFC South. They come off a win last week, an impressive win at home against the Indianapolis Colts. Defense really balled out, I thought, and the offense put up a better showing than what they've been accustomed to this year. Chicago, they handled business last week against a lowly Arizona team. They won at home. That defense keeps playing really good football in the second half of the football season. For that reason, I don't trust the Falcons on the road. I know I picked them last week. That was really only because they were at home. Traveling to Chicago against this defense, I have no faith in whoever's quarterbacking. I think it's going to be Heineke again. Don't matter to me. I'm taking the Bears and Justin Fields.
All right. I went with Atlanta here. I just think that running game is strong. I think that they have found a little bit here and there throughout the season, and that's kind of where Chicago's defense has suffered a little bit, is defending the run, especially when you can get downhill at them. So, yeah, I went with the Falcons. Let's see what happens at quarterback. I trust Heineke a little bit more, but not by much. But, I think this game can be close.
Goodness, I was hoping y'all picked like the same team. Then I go the other way, try to make up some room in the picks. But at this point, man, I really went back and forth, thought hard. Just the quarterbacks that are there, I will say I believe in Justin Fields more, and that's why I went with Chicago. The quarterback play to me is going to be really the difference maker. I understand Justin Fields has a lot of high moments, but also a very lot of low moments. But I just think in this matchup, I can see Justin Fields having a better day of all quarterbacks that may enter this game. So I want Chicago. Just Justin Fields, please do not let me down.
Up next, guys, we've got a big matchup for the Colts, who sit tied atop the AFC South, as I mentioned earlier, coming off that loss to Atlanta. They'll be hosting the Las Vegas Raiders, who pulled off that Christmas upset. I think Vegas defense is playing some really, really good football. But that said, as long as the Colts take care of the football, please take care of the football, I think they're in for a win here. Jonathan Taylor back. I think he'll look more effective this week as well, especially if they don't get behind early like they did against Atlanta. So I'm taking the Colts at home in this one.
I went with the Raiders. I think this defense, like you said, Chase, has been playing good football, and I think what I saw last week, I mean, getting drummed by Atlanta, I think that the Raiders can bring something similarly on the defensive side of the ball and force Gardner Minshew to put the ball in harm's way. I think he's been a quarterback that has been known to do that throughout his career, and this offensive line is not getting enough push for this run game to be going consistently. So I'm going to go with the Raiders here.
I went with the Colts. I think, Michael Pittman should be back in this game. I think, White did have a great week last week with the Raiders, but I just think the Colts, unlike the Chiefs, will make adjustments and make it where if they see that, O'Connell's struggling in the past, they will definitely go and stop the run to this defense. Yes, it's had definitely a big low moment last week, but this defense until last week, at least for me, I was talking them pretty highly on my charts on where I seen where they were heading and going, but to me, it's like you said, it's Gardner Minshew. Which Gardner Minshew will we get in this game? But ultimately, I'm going to pick the Colts. I think it's a better team all around when you actually look at the roster.
I agree. I do want to say Vegas is playing so hard for Antonio Pierce. I hope he gets that job and gets the interim tag taken off. A win here or a win in the last 2 weeks to even flirt, because they're not technically eliminated yet, but to even flirt with playoff contention can get that job secured for him. So I'm rooting for that, for a little stability in that organization, because it desperately needs it. So moving along, we get to the NFC side of things and the wild card picture there with the LA Rams traveling to the New York Giants. 8-7 for the Rams. They took care of business last week. The Giants coming off a loss on Christmas night to the Eagles. They look pretty hopeless. I know Tyrod came in, played a little better, and got that game kind of competitive. They had a chance to tie it, but Darren Waller didn't want to get up off the field for whatever reason. So I think they had signs last week, but man, I can't get that Rams performance against the Ravens out of my head. I just think they're a really good team and underrated. And Matt Stafford, when he's playing Matt Stafford ball, is still some really, really good football. So you pair that with the great ground game and Williams, I'm going to keep riding the Rams and take them to win this football game.
Yeah, I went with the Rams. I don't think there's a whole lot for me to discuss here. I just think that the Rams offense is continuing to cook and the Giants offense is continuing trying to figure out what the heck they're trying to do.
It will be a battle of two quarterbacks with Super Bowl rings, but one that actually, played in the Super Bowl, and that's Matthew Stafford. So I'm going with the Rams. No shots at Tyrod Taylor. I mean, hate the guy, hadn't had his chance. Definitely know we seen him with the Chargers when Justin Herbert had to step in, but hopefully Tyrod played good. But I just see the Rams having a good day offensively with whoever they want to get involved.
Yes. We're all on the Rams there. I think we're all going to be on this next home team here, Battle of the Birds. We've got the Cardinals traveling to Philadelphia. Short and sweet for me. Philly's much better. I'm taking the Eagles at home.
Get right game for Philadelphia. Maybe this offense can finally find their footing. I'm going to go with the Eagles.
Fly, Eagles, fly.
Love it. All right, maybe the key matchup of NFL Week 17, at least on the NFC side, that's for sure. We've got the NFC South matchup probably for the division. The Bucs sit at 8-7, hosting the New Orleans Saints, who sit at 7-8. They come off that loss to the Rams last week. Tampa, man, Brian touched on it. Christian touched on it earlier in the pod. Baker is playing some of the best quarterback in all of football right now. Defense is playing great. They turned Jacksonville over a lot last week. I'm going to keep running that. I think they keep it moving. Mike Evans keeps on churning, putting together his Hall of Fame resume, and the Bucs clinch the NFC South in Week 17 with a victory. That's what I'm going with.
All right. Well, I went with the Saints in this one. And I didn't really have a great reason other than Tampa Bay's been playing some very close games. I think that they are a good team, but I don't think they're great. I think that this division is going to be a team with a losing record that's going to take it. So I went with the Saints.
Okay. No. Saints are not good. That's just what I ain't going to say they're not good. Their defense is great. I think their defense is good, but Derek Carr is just not it. And I just think Baker Mayfield, he knows what his resume is to this point last year, and he knows that this is his moment to get his payday, you can say, and really make a stamp and definitely know that he's going to have that starting job is to win this division. So I think Baker knows that, and with that being said, I expect Mike Evans and those guys, definitely Mike Evans. That's something that we ain't talked about a lot, but Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans are playing for a contract this year. So I expect these guys to know, hey, I win this division, get a playoff berth. That's just going to help me get my bag at the end of the year. So I think Tampa Bay has a lot of guys, one, that got tired of hearing they're not good without Brady, and now they're actually having a chance to win this division. So I went with Tampa.
Yeah, great points. And if Tampa wins this game, actually Baker would have led them to a better record than Tom Brady last year. They won the division at 8 wins last year, a chance to get to 9 behind Baker Mayfield and company. Just kudos to them because we did not see it coming from this Buccaneers team. So hat tip to you, Baker Mayfield. Great season. Hopefully you finish it off Sunday and clinch the South. So next up, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the San Francisco 49ers. We'll be traveling to Washington. Obviously, a sour taste with how Christmas went. I think they clean up the turnovers. They get back to Christian McCaffrey getting a little bit more touches, get behind that left side of the line, and Trent Williams dominate it that way and just take care of business against Washington. So give me the Niners big.
I'm going to go with the Niners as well. I would be interested to see how Jacoby Brissett plays, though, because he's been on fire when he gets in. I don't think he has nearly as much success, but he's been on fire.
Nah, I expect the pissed off 49ers team to come in here and really run up the score, 49ers.
Yeah, and speaking of pissed off teams, maybe none more so than the Jacksonville Jaguars, who have dropped 4 in a row, still sitting tied atop the AFC South somehow at 8-7. They'll be hosting the Carolina Panthers. I think because I know Jacksonville hasn't played well, but because of the way the schedule fell, they've got the inside track to win this division. You got the Panthers this week. Just take care of business. I will say, we didn't touch on it. The Panthers did not win against the Packers last week, but Bryce Young had his best football game of his young career. He looked a lot better. Got DJ Chark for a couple of touchdowns. He was really moving the ball over the middle of the field. Best game as a rookie, best game as an NFL quarterback. So kudos to him. Hopefully he continues that, but ultimately I don't think it's enough. The Panthers are still a very bad team. So I'm taking Jacksonville to get things right and get off the losing streak and win this football game.
I'm picking Jacksonville as well, and I really hope to see Travis Etienne get the ball in this game and they get the running game going. I'm going to keep preaching it. Jacksonville wants to get where they want to be. They're going to have to get the run game going.
I actually went with the Panthers. I think, this is a team that Jacksonville's been on a cold streak. We've seen, them turn it around, but the offense just looks bad at this point. And Trevor Lawrence isn't looking great. Travis Etienne's not looking great. Like I hit on the last pod, since Christian Kirk's not been in, it's been bad. And I think Bryce Young's performance last week says a lot to me. To a lot of quarterbacks, kind of been struggling against his Green Bay defenses that we've seen at times. So I think Bryce Young built upon his 300-yard game. DJ Shark got involved last week that we really hadn't seen all year. So now you have DJ Shark, Adam Thielen actually on the same page as a young quarterback. And Chuba Herbert's had big moments, and we've seen this year at least that Jacksonville has not, been that great against the run, so I can expect Herbert to get involved, Bryce Young just not turn the ball over, and if they do that, I can see the Panthers pull an upset and actually get their 3rd win of the season.
Yeah, I'm not too hateful on that pick, Christian. I think it's very sound reasoning. I almost pulled the trigger myself, especially with how Bryce Young looked last week. But it's going to be a close one. Jacksonville needs that game if they want to win the division and stay in playoff contention. Next up in the 1 o'clock window is the game of the week. I think it's going to be Billed. Ravens going to be in back-to-back game of the weeks. How do they handle that? They'll be hosting the Miami Dolphins for the 1 seed in the AFC. If the Ravens win, they are a game up right now. They clinch the 1 seed in the AFC, whereas if Miami wins, they still have to beat Buffalo or hope the Ravens lose week 18. But I don't think that matters. I think the winner of this football game wins the 1 seed. I think these are two really good teams. And honestly, for this podcast, we could not have scripted it better for this podcast. Week 17, two of our teams coming down for the 1 seed. MVP discussions between both quarterbacks. Like, what more do you want from our standpoint? I've only picked against the Ravens twice all year. I went with the Niners last week, and I was happily wrong. I think Miami presents a huge matchup problem with Tyreek Hill. I think he's the hardest receiver to guard in the league. Marlon Humphrey said that himself in previous years. Tua gets the ball out faster than anyone else, so it's hard to simulate pressure against him, and that can cause problems for your defense. But with the performance Lamar and the offense gave last week, I really love what they're doing. I think this is going to be a close football game. Comes down to the wire. But ultimately, I'm going to be rooting for the Ravens. I hope they do it. I'm picking them. Hopefully they block out because the world's going to be loving them, giving them all the praise. They got to back it up against another good football team. I think it'll be a good game, but I'm going to take my Ravens to clinch that 1 seed at home and maybe seek some revenge for how last year went. Because for those that don't know, we were all together watching this game last year at home, and the Ravens got up 21 points, and Tua and Tyreek Hill and company came storming back. So maybe they can exercise some demons. I'm going to pick them too and clinch the 1 seed. Brian, I imagine you're going to go a different way, and Christian may be the tiebreaker, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you think this game's going to play out.
Man, this game has the makings of a very, very interesting game because on one side you look at Baltimore and the way that they're structured with Wink Martindale and company, and they want to get pressure, they want to get after the quarterback.
Whoa. Wink, he's in New York, my brother.
Oh, my bad.
Mike McDonald.
I
ain't trying to
I don't know why I said that. Anyway,
oh God,
if
still like to
Mike
get
McDonald wasn't wasn't getting all that, I'm scared we're gonna lose him. That's how good he was on Christmas night, and he dialed up a heck of a game plan to get 5 turnovers. That's an interesting matchup. Go ahead, finish your point there, Brian.
They like to blitz. They like to make the quarterback uncomfortable, and also they do a lot of like bracketing coverage on the top weapon. And I saw that last year with Tyreek. They'd normally be clouding a guy underneath and have a safety playing over top, or they'd have a man and have a second guy kind of trailing him. So kind of puts some very interesting matchup problems here, especially if Miami does not have Jalen Waddle. And that's kind of the X factor for me in this game is I think that Miami against this Baltimore team is going to need to have Waddle to be that kind of ancillary piece when the defense is keying in on Hill. So that's kind of where my head is with it as far as that side of the ball. But then the other side of things is Miami is kind of, traditionally speaking anyways, have had a hard time with mobile quarterbacks. So can they keep Lamar contained and within the pocket and compress the pocket without giving rush lanes? And they don't blitz a whole lot, so you're going to have to beat him in coverage. And the other side, if you're going to look at the positives, is I think that the Miami corners can man up these Baltimore receivers and lock them down and force Baltimore to have to play through the middle of the field. And I think that can be a recipe for success. So, man, I think this game can be really tightly contested throughout the game, but I did go Miami here, and it's not so much of our offense, but I'm going to continue to preach it. This defense is legit. So I'm going to go Miami.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, Miami has, proved me wrong in a good many parts of the year. Definitely this O-line last week. How many starters are playing, Brian?
One.
And I knew that going in. That's why I really drug home to Dallas. I was like, heck, they're going to get Tua. I understand he gets rid of the ball, but you have 4 guys out. So my big thing, though, that I will say that is with all that offense lineman out, the running game hasn't been what it has been in the past couple of weeks. And I think in this game with Baltimore's defense, if there's no running game, I just don't think it's going to be successful. I think you're going to have to be balanced against his defenses. Number one in everything after this weekend. So I think it will be a battle of defense, but I think both of these offenses is kind of be like what it was in the Dallas and Miami game, honestly. It's what team can hit those home run plays when they come and who actually capitalize on them. I don't think it'd be like a 20-22 score, but I see this game being very close. I just think it's going to come down to when it is pressure time and both teams get back to the quarterback. One, can they get to it before he releases? And then are you going to be able to get to Lamar before he decides it's time to make magic happen? So I think that's really going to be the factor in this game is which team can actually, when they do get home, actually bring the quarterback down. So I think whichever team doesn't do that, that's when the home run plays are going to be created because if you're sending help to go get the quarterback, that means a lot of one-on-one opportunities, and that's when your playmakers are going to be able to make those plays. So ultimately, I did go with Baltimore just because the defense is what I understand both units are good, but I think they're first, and we've preached the 49ers best team. The 49ers are the best team. They have so many weapons. They can do this, and this, and beat you. And then last week, what they did against that team, honestly, it changed me how I felt about the 49ers. But in reality, I don't think it should have changed how you look at the 49ers. It should have changed how you looked at Baltimore moving forward. And that's really what it did for me, and that's why I went with Baltimore in this game. And then Waddle's status is, I think, like Brian said, the X factor in this game.
Yeah, a lot of stuff there for a Dolphins-Ravens matchup. For this pod, obviously, we're going to break that one down heavily. And it's a big game. It's going to be the most talked about game in the NFL media this week for that one seed in the AFC. So get your popcorn ready. It didn't get flexed to prime time, surprisingly. It's 1 o'clock. Wake up, have your alarm set, get up early, put your Tua jersey on, Brian, and put my Lamar on jersey, and we'll duke it out for that one seed. You're good, brother. It's going to be
some
fun.
news, bro. Just got some breaking news. Broncos expected to cut Russell Wilson.
Dang.
Wow. And with that said, there are a few games. Yeah, there are a few games below. I'm gonna go and skip to this game in the pick'em because before we got on today, we're kind of off pod discussing Russell Wilson and his situation. He was reportedly benched for Jared Stidham. And even though the Broncos are very much in the AFC wildcard race, but they come off a game they lost prime time to the New England Patriots at home. A game you just can't lose if you want to make the playoffs. And Russell Wilson didn't have his best game, but the reports of his benching was very puzzling to all of us because he hadn't exactly been playing terrible. And I was surfing around looking at to why, and they may have done this, listen to Sean Payton's comments, and he kind of ducked the question as you would expect. But there is a clause that if Russell gets hurt, he is guaranteed $37 million next year. And the Broncos didn't want to just have to pay him that. They don't think he's worth that. I see their point. But to outright cut him, I'm very shocked. I'm not sure. Do y'all know how that works and what they're going to have to eat in dead money?
I can find that out for you while you do something else.
Any thoughts on that situation, Christian? Because they're going to be playing your Chargers at home. A game, I know the Chargers looked better last week against Buffalo, but at home in the playoff race, Denver should be able to win this game. But without Russ, I think it's a downgrade at quarterback. How do you handle that? Do you take care of business? I'm going to pick the Broncos to win this game, but that whole saga since Russ has been there is just a mystery, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, Russ, I'll talk to him. Well, not talk to him, but talk about him real quick. And my big thing is I seen a stat. I don't know how 100% it is, but I think it was like the last 2 seasons he's had the most losses out of any quarterback. So the guy can't win. That makes you lose a certain job, I guess. But I will say, I don't know if Russell Wilson's more to blame than Sean Payton's how I look at it. I think it says a lot that we've seen Pete Carroll make stuff work with Russell Wilson, and now you're telling me that Jared Stidham is better than Russell Wilson. I think all 3 of us will agree that he's not. That's just plain and simple. And I think Sean Payton, like you say, ducking and weaving the question of today. I think I seen one thing. It was like, we can't replace 5 offensive linemen. We can't replace, our wide receivers, putting the blame directly on Russ when this is a guy I think he signed off on to go get versus anything. Brian, you got the money, don't you?
How much is going on with it? I'm sure it's not pretty. Yeah.
They said in March, so that's pre-June 1st, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And so that is, you normally will save a little bit more money if you wait till after June 1st, but besides the point. 2024 dead cap, bro. $85 million. They saved negative 49 mil against the cap.
Go ahead
Holy
do it.
Smokes, dude. That is like crippling.
Hat tip to Seattle's front office, because if you look at the return, all those picks, listen to some of the guys they took with these picks. They got Witherspoon, the corner. They got Mafe, a great pass rusher, a very underrated pass rusher.
Underrated.
Then you get Drew Lock, who is probably the best backup in the league. We've even talked to him maybe starting over Geno at points. Like, he looked great, won them a game at home against the Eagles. You got Noah Fant, a serviceable tight end, and Charles Cross, the offensive tackle, who looks like, when he's healthy, a franchise tackle. So just hat tip to Seattle for pulling the trigger on that, getting what they got for us. And, man, that's one of the messier QB front office relationships I've seen in quite some time. Like, that just did not go the way everyone thought it was going to go. So,
hey, Christian, for the one time, Broncos
one time
country.
Broncos
This
country.
ride.
Golly. Nah, I will say, man, I am a little disappointed because, I mean, with the pick, I am going to pick the Chargers with this news. I just think definitely with Jarrett Stidham and just what Russell couldn't do with the passing game, and now you're putting Stidham out there that we've seen what he does when he is called upon. But, I mean, I think the Chargers win this one. I mean, Stick has looked better each week now that he's got the starting job, and Austin Eckler was more involved last week. So if we get him involved this week, I mean, Williams hasn't been really going for Denver the last couple of weeks. That's why I just think ultimately, I hate to say it, but I think the Chargers will win. I'm not going to say by a lot because I just don't think that's possible anymore, but a comfortable win for the Chargers.
Oh, I went with Denver, man. I just think that they'll be able to take the game a little bit more seriously without having that cornball in the locker room. Just sorry, not sorry.
Russell Wilson, man, he has gotten a lot of hate, and deserved or not, he is a character, to say the least. And for a guy that didn't make it 2 full seasons, having that quote of Broncos country, let's ride, that's going to be stuck in my head till I'm 50. And when I think of the Broncos, that's what I'm going to think of. Like, that's just such a wild relationship, the way that played out. So thank you for breaking that news for us here, Brian, on the pod. We've got a few other Week 17 games to get to, and we'll finish up this pod. It's going a little long here, but we got some good games to finish out. So the next one here, guys, in the 1 o'clock window, the last game of the 1 o'clock window is a AFC South matchup. The Tennessee Titans traveling to the Houston Texans to take on Houston at 8-7. Titans sit at 5-10. They're out of the playoff race, but Houston tied atop the AFC South. I believe C.J. Stroud cleared to go, from what I saw. He will be quarterbacking, and Houston went 1-1 without him. I think you take that every day of the week. You really count yourself lucky that you beat the Titans that first time, I would say. And CJ's about to put on the cape, come through, win these last 2 games, seal up Rookie of the Year, and get Houston in the playoffs, in my opinion. So I'm taking the Texans at home behind CJ Stroud.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Texans as well with CJ Stroud coming back, and hopefully we see more of the same that he's done this year. I just expect them to win this game because Tennessee just, not a complete team. Although I will say they've got the ground game going a little bit better as of late. I'm still going with Houston.
Yeah, I think Will Levis might play this game, so Mayonnaise Boy might be out there. But at the end of the day, I'm still take C.J. Stroud and company. I just think this defense has really been playing for this team, and now you're getting your number 1 guy back out there. But I'm going to hold off on the Offensive Rookie of the Year. My guy, Gibbs is making a little showcase for himself. But I think Houston, C.J. Stroud.
Yeah, he's had a great year. That's an interesting race. Gibbs is really coming on strong, but man, CJ Stroud was almost in MVP talks like a few weeks in. And me and you, Christian, had him at 5 just a few weeks ago because he's played that dynamic. He's going to have to finish that up and get Houston in the playoffs. I think he does that. He could seal the award. Detroit already in the playoffs. A lot of that is thanks to the oncoming of Gibbs these last few weeks. So a great race to keep an eye on. So next up, 2 wildcard hopeful teams in opposite conferences. You've got the 8-7 Pittsburgh Steelers, who really actually had their best offensive showing of the year, I would say. Got to 30 points, which I didn't think was possible. George Pickens had a day. And they won that football game against Cincinnati. And Seattle, who sit at 8-7, they really struggled last week. Who were they? I can't remember who they were playing. Was it? It was a bad team.
Oh, Tennessee.
Team they should have had. It was Tennessee. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they had to go down and get a late touchdown to win that game. And a performance I wasn't thrilled with, but a win is a win. And both of these teams need this game to stay in the wild card hunt. Seattle more in the inside track than Pittsburgh is because the AFC is so loaded. I know Pittsburgh offense looked good last week, but I still don't believe. I'll never believe on that side of the ball. I think they drop it going to week 18 at 8-8, and they're playing Baltimore to finish above 500. That's what they'll be playing for in week 18, in my opinion. I'm taking the Seahawks to stay in the NFC wild card hunt.
Yeah, this will be still in December, so a little bit of that Christmas magic for Mason Rudolph might still be in effect here, but I'm going to have that come crashing back down to earth a little bit because I do not believe, like you, Chase, I don't believe in the Steelers offense at all. I was really shocked to see Pickens go for 202 touchdowns. I'm going to go Seattle here. I think they're a little bit more consistent, a little bit more of a well-rounded team, although I can definitely see Pittsburgh winning this game.
Yeah, I went with Pittsburgh. I just think this defense would give Seattle a lot of trouble versus, what they want to do. They want to get Kenneth Walker kind of going. They've shown in the last couple of weeks when he can't go, it's really been a shoot, like go down the field, big plays, and that's something Pittsburgh I just don't see letting them do. So I think with that being said, I ain't going to say a little bit of that magic will be left over, but I just think this offense will have enough juice left to really just, with the defense carrying the load, kind of what we've seen all year. And I think they know Mike Tomlin needs one of these next two, and I'm not sure who they play next week, but this would be the game to keep Mike Tomlin record alive. So I think the boys in Pittsburgh is going to pull it off.
Yeah, if they want that, they got to win this week. I think, although they played Baltimore week 18 in Baltimore, obviously not a good matchup for them, even though they beat us earlier in the year. But if my Ravens beat Miami and clinch the 1 seed, who's to say they don't rest the guys week 18 and let Pittsburgh really get the inside track of that game. So we'll see how this AFC playoff picture plays out these last 2 weeks. A lot of things to keep an eye on. The last 2 games we got to get to here, guys, quickly. An AFC matchup first. The Kansas City Chiefs, who probably had the most disappointing performance of the Christmas Day games, dropping that game to Vegas. And they'll be taking on the team we just mentioned that had a disappointing performance against Mason Rudolph, the Bengals. That defense got diced up against George Pickens and company. Jake Browning looked the worst he's looked all year since stepping in for Joe Burrow. I think the Chiefs are just sliding so hard right now, and the offense gives you nothing to be desired right now that you feel scared picking them, but I still trust Patrick Mahomes to find a way. I don't think it'll be pretty. They just are what they are at this point, but I'm going to pick them to find a way and win this football game against a team that's probably a little more evenly matched than people would think. So give me the Chiefs in a close one.
Yeah, I went with the Chiefs as well, and it's a lot to do with I don't really believe in Jake Browning. I kind of got suckered in just a little bit, and then he's had 2 really poor games against Pittsburgh. I think the Chiefs can do enough defensively to kind of throw some wrenches in their game plan and make Browning make a few mistakes, and Mahomes find enough on offense to get the job done like he has most of the year, outside of a few exceptions. I don't think it's going to be lighting the world on fire or anything like that, but enough offensively to get the job done and get this game. So, Kansas City.
Both of these teams last week, what happened, I just don't know how to look at both of them and think that a lot's going to change in a week. So I did go with Cincinnati. I think KC, there's a lot more going on in the building, a lot more pointing fingers. Cincinnati is not having that. And I think Cincinnati, their defense, I would think has had moments where you can argue maybe he's been better than the Raiders defense. So I think this would be a defense to try to get after Patrick Mahomes, let him kind of break the pocket like he wants to kind of create. And that's where Brian's saying he's getting bit a lot. So I think this is a team that's going to want him to go ahead, break the pocket. Then they can get their pass rushers to go get him. So I think, T. Higgins has been that number one guy. I understand last week was a blowout, but T. Higgins had a big game last week. He can build upon that. And really a KC defense that's not been that great. And we've seen a White running back, last week with the Raiders get going. So I think this week with Joe Mixon going, I think KC can expect another big run attack against them with Joe Mixon, and then you have T. Higgins and company. So I'm going to Cincinnati for an upset, and Patrick Mahomes and this KC team just keep burning to the ground.
Oh, I don't hate that pick though either, Christian. The way KC has looked these last few weeks. The last one here, two teams that are second place in the NFC North. The Green Bay Packers and Minnesota Vikings sitting at 7-8. The primetime game. Jordan Love has been quietly playing pretty dang good football these last few weeks. For me, it's the Green Bay defense that's like, what is going on there? You just got diced up by Bryce Young last week. The week before that, Baker Mayfield had a perfect passer rating. And then you get the news today, for anyone that hasn't heard, Jair Alexander is a team suspended, missing this football game. Anyone that hadn't watched that video, please go watch it because he broke down what went wrong. And pretty much it boils down to he's from Charlotte. He was on the field for the coin toss when he wasn't supposed to because he wasn't a captain, and he almost butchered the coin toss because you're supposed to say when you want to start on defense, you defer. He said, we want to start on defense, and the refs kind of gave him the benefit of the doubt. We're like, you want to
You know
defer?
what
He
I
was like,
mean?
yeah. Yeah, so go watch that video if you want a good laugh. But all that aside, he's going to be out. He's a really good corner, one of the top corners for our money. That's a big loss, but still, what do you expect from the Vikings offense? I know it was really slinging it with Mullins last week, but it got bit by the turnover. Can they avoid those this week? Can Justin Jefferson put the backpack on and win a home game in prime time alone for his team and carry that offense? I think he's capable, but I'm not going to bet against Jordan Love and the other side of the ball. I think the quarterback play is going to determine this game and going to determine who finishes second in the NFC North. I think Jordan Love's far superior than Mullins or Dobbs, whoever they go with. It looks to be Mullins. I'm going to take the Packers on the road to win this football game.
Yeah, I was excited for this Love Dobbs matchup after some discourse earlier in the season on the pod here. But unfortunately, we won't get to see that because he got benched for Nick Mullins. Anyway, Butch Berry, the defensive coordinator for Green Bay, he is, I think, been putting this Green Bay Packers team in unfortunate situations. Allowed Bryce Young to go over 300 yards last week after allowing a perfect pass rater to Baker Mayfield. I get that guys can have good games and yada, 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 but at the same time, you're kind of allowing things outside of the norm to happen on your defense, and that's not a good thing. And Bryce Young having 300 yards and 3 touchdowns is definitely one of those things that makes me throw up a red flag. So, Green Bay, I'm still going to pick them. I think it has a lot more to do with Jordan Love being a good quarterback and making things happen. I don't know if you guys have seen the stat line this year, but it would be the best stat line a Bears quarterback has ever had. So take that, Bears fans, for no reason.
Oh.
But I'm going to go Green Bay.
Man, I went back and forth on this, but I used to watch a show, Impractical Jokers, and they start off the show, "I will never forgive you," and that is talking to the Minnesota Vikings and the benching of Joshua Dobbs. So, with that being said, I ultimately went with the Green Bay Packers. I think Jordan Love, we seen last week them squeeze out a victory against the Panthers, and what they gave up to Bryce Young and actually came out of that game, I take as a win. I mean, I understand the defense played terribly, but I think, with that being said, you have to improve somewhere. And I mean, to me, I would say Bryce Young is better than who they have at starting quarterback right now in Minnesota. So, with that being said, I understand they're going to try to send some heat. Aaron Jones is back. We've all said this in at least our group chat that you see a big difference in that running back room when A.J. Dillon's back there and Aaron Jones is back there. So, with that being said, I think Green Bay, having a chance for even second place, they know that they're pretty much playing with house money. I don't think they expected this to be what they were doing this year with Jordan Love. So I expect them to win this game and really try to slow down the blitzes that are definitely going to be coming out of Minnesota.
Yep, two teams still fighting for their playoff lives in the NFC. Things can shake around, and both of those teams sneak in, and clinch a playoff spot if they win these last two games. Things fall their way. It can happen in the NFC. So, a good week, a good recap. I know it's a long show. We just got together with the Christmas schedule and the conflict we had and all that thing, but it was good talking to you guys. We're in the home stretch, the last 2 weeks of NFL football. I truly can't believe it's here. Fun previewing all these matchups, including that Dolphins-Ravens game, who each of us will be texting throughout and breaking down a huge, lengthy segment on when we all get together for the recap of NFL Week 16. So we thank you guys who have listened and been joining us throughout this football season. It's pretty much boiling down to this a big matchup ahead of NFL Week 17. As always, if you could, please follow the boys on Twitter. I am at ChaseOwens96. Brian is at Sarver_Brian. And Christian is at C_Mills241. Do us a favor, please rate and review the podcast itself on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. See any of the TikToks or YouTube Shorts, Instagram videos. Do us a favor and like, comment, subscribe, all those things. Get the algorithm pumping and help us grow as a community. We thank you guys for listening. Until next time, peace out.
Peace. Don't let me down, Lamar.